Hello, good evening, and welcome to today's edition of Weekend File. Statistics indicate that about 10 million Nigerian children of school age are not in schools. These statistics have grave social consequences, including spiraling rate of illiteracy and the dramatic rise in crimes committed by homeless street kids in Nigeria's major towns and cities. There are millions of children who are neither cared for nor have the prospect of personal fulfillment for the future, bereft of hope and cut off from the sustenance of family ties. These children roam the streets in a daze. Many factors determine the decision concerning sending children to school or to work, as well as being street children. Specifically speaking, poverty and illiteracy, reinforced by traditional customs, were identified as some of the root causes of street children. Weekend File tonight focuses on out-of-school children, with the aim of understanding the root causes of this ugly development, which has grown over the years unattended to in all parts of the country, and possibly prefer solutions to that societal enigma. My name is Kirian Umayo, and this is your Weekend Companion. We're glad to have you join us tonight on this show. And now the news of the day. The Vice President, Muhammad Namadi Sambo, has emphasized the need for Nigerians to support inter-religious harmony for peace and development to thrive in the nation. This was during a one-day conference of the Muslim Students Society of Nigeria Stakeholders Conference in Abuja. Ali Kabir has the report.
Since inception in 1954, the Muslim Student Society of Nigeria, MSSN, has been playing a vital role in promoting integration amongst Nigerians. This conference is one in the series of activities of the MSSN, with its theme repositioning the society to face modern challenges in the Islamic propagation. Vice President Muhammad Namadi Sambo urged participants to continue propagating the true teachings of Islam in order to ensure an ideal society.
Let me also remind us of the need to propagate the true message of Islam as being translated in the glorious Quran, Hadith, and Sunnah. The message of Islam is a message of peace, hope, harmony, goodwill, and brotherhood.
Stakeholders maintained that Muslim students in Nigeria have a greater role to play in the sustenance of peaceful coexistence among the various segments of this nation's socio-economic strata, cutting across religious and ethnic lines.
I urge all other colleagues, fellow brothers in particular, and sisters of the past units to dedicate themselves to this challenge.
All our activities have always been towards uniting the entire population of this country and even the world at large. As a result, I even see not only Muslim as my brother, but even those who does not profess the religion. Because Allah has created us in His infinite wisdom, He made us to profess different religions.
Stakeholders also urged the Muslim Ummah to seek for knowledge to foster harmonious coexistence and development. In Abuja, Ali Kabir, NTA News.
Residents of Lagos are now heaving a sigh of relief with the supply of fuel to several filling stations within the metropolis. Almajiri Bello, who went around Lagos, reports that the only challenge is the long queues of vehicles at several filling stations in Lagos.
This was the only filling station dispensing fuel at Ahmadu Bello Way, Victoria Island. Despite the availability of fuel, motorists speak on what they went through in a bid to purchase the product.
So many people shunting, jerry cans. So if it's available, I shouldn't be here for 4 hours.
As far as you are in queue with Okada, they sell for you, sell for motor, the line will be moving.
As the fuel scarcity enters day 6, most filling stations now are being supplied with the product. But let's feel the pulse of Lagosians.
So it's here, but it's not easy at all. Like, we've been here since 7, 8 o'clock. and the line is not even moving.
Many motorists alleged that undue preference was given to security officials, a development that did not go down well, with several motorists who claim they have spent long hours on the queue.
They come in uniform and start putting vests and putting their cans in there. So they are because of this long queue.
Major problem is the uniform men who deprive the non-uniform from buying. Because sometimes they come with different tankers, load jerrycans in their and private other people for buying.
At Falomo, there were 2 filling stations where the product were being sold. Residents of Lagos are however optimistic that if the supply of PMS continues throughout the weekend, the initial scarcity will be a thing of the past by next week. In Lagos, Olajide Bello, NTA News.
To reposition the PDP for future elections in the country, the Southwest Presidential Committee on the party has advised the National Working Committee and its leadership in the Southwest to step aside. The meeting held in Ado-Ekiti was attended by Governor Ayodele Fayose, Chief Bode George, and other stalwarts in the region. Kunle Adeyeye has the report.
Apart from the call on the national leadership and that of the Southwest of the party to voluntarily step aside, the committee also commends President Goodluck Jonathan for being patriotic as he showed his love for the country by quickly accepting the results of the March 28th presidential election. Members of the committee declared their support for Governors Ayodele Fayose of Ekiti State and Olusegun Mimiko of Ondo State, as they are now the symbols of the party in the region. The committee also condemned the impeachment moves against Governor Fayose.
The party also supports a complete overhauling of the party's leadership and calls on the National Working Committee to set aside honorably to allow everyone the position of the party. We are saying those members who are representing Southwest should also honorably resign.
Governor Fayose implored members to stay put and rebuild the party and want those who have defected to other parties have a change of mind.
So this PDP will stand and stand its ground and now be able to provide every opposition Nigerians.
The extensive deliberation attracted stalwarts of the party from the 6 states of the Southwest. In Ado-Ekiti, Kunle Adeyeye, NTA News.
Governor Bala James Ngelari of Adamawa State says he only recognizes Jerry Kundusi as the Speaker of the State Assembly. He said to forestall breakdown of law and order, security agents have been directed to take over the House of Assembly. Correspondent Riano Bala reports.
Governor Bala James Ngelari, who was speaking through the Director of Public Affairs Government House Yola, Mr. P.P. Elisha says, though he has no hand in the internal crisis of the Assembly, yet he identified with the new Speaker Jerry Kundisi because due process was followed for his election as Speaker of the State Assembly. He explained that the House is under lock and key to prevent any faction from carrying out legislative function until normalcy is restored.
We understand the new Speaker is taking steps to see that the House will be open for business.
The governor called on the people of the state to remain calm and law-abiding as government is determined to continue to provide dividends of democracy to the state. In Yola, Bayanu Bala, NTA News.
The federal government has inaugurated the Inter-Ministerial National Environment Sanitation Committee to ensure the security of sound public health in Nigeria. Minister of Environment Laurentia Malam, who inaugurated the committee, said June 28 has been set aside every year as the National Environmental Sanitation Day. Mayor Ogidi in this report takes a look at the policy and its benefits.
The rapid population growth without commensurate provision of infrastructure and services in Nigeria, arise by increased urban slums, overstretched sanitary facilities, generation of enormous waste, and a reduction in the quality of life of the people. The resultant effect of this is the prevalence of communicable diseases. To tackle this issue, the then military government introduced the National Sanitation Day in 1983 to 1984, as well as the civilian government in 2005. But this laudable policy is yet to be imbibed as a culture by the citizenry. So, the inauguration of this fresh committee is to review and update the 2005 policy on national environmental sanitation.
The cross-cutting dimension of environmental sanitation issues and the magnitude of the problems call for collective responsibility for the country.
What we need to do now is to actually imbibe this thing as a culture within our people.
When that policy was produced, there was nothing about electronic waste. Healthcare waste was not mentioned.
The immediate task before this committee is to identify the state and activities for the 2015 National Environmental Sanitation Day by June 28. In Abuja, Mie Ogidi, NTA News.
Nigeria is to begin a vaccine trial against Ebola with the siting of 2 clinical research centers in the country. The facility, which is the joint project of the Nigerian Ministry of Defense and United States Department of Defense, is to study and build on the findings of the phase 1 trials of the Ebola vaccine. Defense correspondent KG Busari Ahmed has the details.
Nigeria may have been declared Ebola-free by the World Health Organization, but the country, through its military, is not relenting on its effort to prevent future outbreak, hence the launch of 2 clinical research centers in the country.
As a further demonstration of the confidence in the program, the ministry is considering the establishment of Ebola containment facilities to be made up of about 5 military healthcare facilities. The Nigerian and U.S. militaries are collaborating to facilitate the development of preventive measures for Ebola viral disease, with emphasis on production of a safe and effective Ebola viral disease vaccine for use in the general populace.
The U.S. government's investment in health in Nigeria, if you add up what all U.S. agencies are doing on all of the health issues here, it totals into one of our largest health programs anywhere in the world.
This is one of the 2 sites where the vaccine study is scheduled to take place in Nigeria.
The Clinical Research Center has commenced the enrollment of 300 volunteers nationwide to participate in the study. In Abuja, KG Busari Ahmed, NTA News.
Sokoto State Government has donated relief materials to Borno and Yobe State Government. The items, worth millions of naira, were presented through Arewa Nationalist Movement Sokoto Chapter. Correspondent Ibrahim Yusuf reports that the gesture is coming at the time the Nigerian Army and other security agencies continue to rescue Nigerians abducted by Boko Haram insurgents.
Leader of the delegation, who is also the Commissioner for Women and Children Affairs, Sokoto State, Hajia Kuluwanu, said the delegation is in the state to present relief materials for female IDPs in the state to ease their sufferings. Hajia Kuluwa disclosed that they were accompanied by non-governmental organization, Arewa Nationalist Movement, due to the importance attached to the organization on the provision of humanitarian services. The Sokoto State Commissioner for Women and Children Affairs conveyed the governor's condolence to Governor Kashim Shettima. Items donated by the Sokoto State government include 1,200 bags of rice and 1,000 pieces of wrappers. Responding, Governor Kashim Shettima uploaded the cordial relationship that exists between the 2 states for decades and hoped that such relationship will be sustained. Governor Kashim Shettima used the forum to call on leaders to improve the quality of leadership through good governance and attributed the current situation to lack of good governance. The governor expressed gratitude for the donations and commended the delegates' courage for coming to the state and assured that the items donated will reach the target beneficiaries. In Maiduguri, Ibrahim Obaisuf, NTA News.
The body of the late Uruntu Douglas, the special advisor to the president on research, documentation and strategy, has been laid to final rest. President Jonathan was among eminent Nigerians who attended the commendation service in honor of the deceased Yenagoa Bayelsa State. Correspondent Shigulawole reports.
It was time to pay the last respect to a foremost environmental activist and a strong advocate of the rights of the people of the Niger Delta. As family members, friends and associates, gathered at St. Peter's Deanery, Yenagua, for the commendation service in honor of late Orunto Douglas. It wasn't until his death the special advisor to President Jonathan on research and documentation will the president describe as highly dependable.
Orunto is somebody who is so dedicated to his service, totally committed. If he believes in you, he will never betray you. He will stand by you to the end. Even if you are dying, Orunto will want to die with you.
And in appreciation of his life of service to the people of Bayelsa State, Governor Siriake Disim gave out scholarship to Orunto's 2 children up to university level.
We also must give thanks to God for a life well short. Orunto lived a full life, a life of distinction and honor.
Right Reverend Emmanuel Okujaja, Bishop of Niger Delta West Diocese, Anglican Communion, reminded the congregation in his sermon to live a life of sacrifice, full of positive impact on others.
Wherever you find yourself, in any position of life,
as the school children mourned the departed, so were family members full of grief.
He was not violent. I know he was not tribalistic. I know he loved his nation and he was a good patriot of his nation.
Orunto Douglas died 4 months to his 49th birthday. He has since been buried. From Yenagua, Bayelsa State, Shagulawale, NTA News.
The death has also been announced of the late Chief Imam Abuja National Mosque, Sheikh Musa Muhammadu, after a brief illness at the National Hospital today. Born on the 11th of April 1947, late Sheikh Musa Muhammad is survived by 4 wives and 14 children. A statement by the Executive Secretary of the Abuja National Mosque Management Board, Ibrahim Abubakar Jega, said the Janaza prayer is scheduled for Sunday, 3rd of May by 10 o'clock in the morning at the National Mosque, Abuja. President Goodluck Jonathan has, on behalf of the federal government and Nigerians, condoled Governor Issa Yuguda of Bauchi State over the death of his mother, Ajia Hawa Yuguda, who died last Wednesday, leaving behind 3 children. Correspondent Muhammad Ibn Muhammad Namadi reports that the Vice President, Muhammad Namadi Sambo, extended the president's condolences to the governor and the Bauchi people.
While delivering President Goodluck Jonathan's condolence message to Governor Issa Yuguda over the demise of his mother, Vice President Muhammad Namadi Sambo described the death of Hajia Hawa Yuguda as a great loss not only to the Yuguda's family but to Nigeria as a nation. According to him, late Hajia Hawa Yuguda, popularly known as Gogo, during her lifetime lived a life of righteousness that have impacted on the lives of many Nigerians.
We have prayed to Almighty Allah that He grants her Al-Jannah Firdaus, and to also give the governor and the family the fortitude to bear this great loss.
Son of the deceased, Governor Issa Yuguda thanked President Goodluck Jonathan and Vice President Sambo for the condolence and prayed Allah to reward them abundantly. Late Hajia Hawa Yuguda died in Bauchi on Wednesday at the age of 85 after a protracted illness. In Bauchi, Mahmoud Ibn Muhammad, NTA News.
About 10 million Nigerian children have been reported to be out of schools due to various reasons. This is despite decades of governmental efforts to bridge the gap. Stay with us after this break for a closer look at the issues. This is WeekendFile on the NTA network service. Among the E9 countries, that is countries with the highest number of illiterates in the world. The staggering statistics of 10.5 million out-of-school children has placed Nigeria as a country in a hurry to provide unfettered access to basic education for Nigerian children. Franka Uzoma-Alwa examines the journey so far.
They are found in odd places begging for alms at the risk of their lives without the privilege of seeing the four walls of a formal classroom. These are the Almajiri children whose population is put at 9 million, mainly in the northern part of the country and few in some south-south states. But they are not alone. There are also the boys who dropped out of school for trading in the southeast and south-south zones. And not forgetting the girl child who lost the exclusive right of early education due to cultural and religious beliefs. Based on this scenario, the federal government identified access to education as a priority. A total of 135 boarding and day schools located in 27 states of the Federation have been constructed under the Almajiri school program.
The important thing, the government has set the pace by creating these unique schools for these engaged children, the Quranic schools, and also for addressing the boys out of school in the southeastern part of Nigeria.
Everything is designed to cater for the social, psychological, religious yearnings of these children and their parents.
Similarly, vocational centers were constructed in 11 states of the southeast and south-south to address the problem of the boy-child dropout syndrome.
It has to do with the policy that government has put in place. Students, you actually find students actually seeking fast money these days at a very tender age than wanting to go to school.
More so, the Universal Basic Education Commission also constructed classrooms, hostels, libraries, staff quarters and laboratories for effective basic education delivery in the country. Beyond these achievements, many have made a case for effective legislation to ensure that children of school age are not denied the right to education.
There is a philosophy of Nigerian education that says that all children of school age should be in school compulsory and free.
The children who, most of them are no parents, they don't have parents, they don't have father or mother. But by the time government show concern to them, show them how much they love them. And I think everybody knows the benefit of school.
Just have to move from merely spending on education. We have to rethink so many things, assess how far we've gone, and see what we have not done right, and go to do those things technically and not just politically.
With Nigeria's inability to meet up with the 2015 national and international goals in education, some say there is urgent need to devise more robust programs to address the challenges of access to education. In Abuja, Franka Uzoma-Alwa, NTA News.
Well, thank you, Franca, for that background report. From the southeast zone comes a report that the unemployment of most graduates, poor remuneration of civil servants, and get-rich-quick syndrome among males have been identified as some of the reasons for low male enrollment in schools. Chinayemwoye takes a look at the status of back-to-school program in some states within the zone.
To its creation, Ebonyi State was known as an educationally backward state, as most of male youths were involved in hawking and doing menial jobs in major cities across the country. However, with the introduction of free and compulsory primary and secondary education by the state government since 1999, there has been a noticeable increase in male enrollment in schools. Statistics from the State Ministry of Education shows that the difference between female and male enrollment in primary and secondary schools is 52 to 48 in ratio, with the boys leading in secondary school enrollment.
Federal government also launched this back-to-school program for the boys.
In Anambra State, the downward trend in boy child education in recent past, which analysts say is as a result of poor financial remuneration in the civil service, is slowly changing. For the back-to-school program, the state has skill acquisition centers in 3 geopolitical zones and has liaised with the Technology Incubation Center, NEWI, for further training of technical hands in the state.
We pick these boys who have dropped out and who are in the main markets or any other markets at in one way anywhere.
The launch of back-to-school program of the federal government in the southeast, to a large extent, created the much-needed awareness for boy child education in Enugu State. Though the vocational centers established are yet to be functional in the state, there are various technical schools for skill acquisition. Respondents are optimistic that when completed and functional, the back-to-school program and the vocational centers of the federal government in various states will afford many children, especially the boys, the opportunity to go to school. In Enugu, Chinenwoye, NTA News.
The integration of Almajiri formal school system by the federal government through the establishment of Sangaya schools has suffered a serious setback in Kaduna State, as 2 schools are grappling with dwindling enrollment figure and the full integration of the Almajiri into the system. Correspondent Muhammad Salihu Anwal reports that the 2 Sangaya schools are underutilized.
Engaged in menial jobs, with others depending on the benevolence of the society, have been at the root of denying children access to education. Investigation shows that children of ages between 6 to 11 are denied access to primary education. Data available reveal that only 30% of total enrollment figure drop out of school, while 54% proceeded to junior secondary schools in Kaduna State. Some of the children who are out of school decried the inability of their parents to enroll them into formal education system. They told NTA News that there is need to look into their plight and stop them from begging and destitution. Some parents said government should do more to enhance enrollment of school children.
I'm advising them to look into education side.
Worried by this ugly trend, the Kaduna State government evolved strategies in increasing enrollment figure and also return pupils in schools, which include establishment of additional primary schools in all the 34 local government areas, in addition to the establishment of 100 Sangaya schools for the Almajiri in the state. As part of incentive to keep the Almajiri in the school, government spent 36 million naira monthly. The special advisor to Kaduna State Governor on Almajiri, Manalo Mani Gambara, said this has helped in providing an opportunity to integrate the Almajiri into formal school system. A Kaduna-based educationist, Malam Bashir Rongudia, said as a result of these efforts and increased awareness, there is remarkable departure from the past.
Because people have seen the importance of education and they are doing their best to ensure that they enroll their children and want into schools.
In Kaduna, Mohamed Salis Awal, NTA News.
In recognition of education as a prerequisite for the development of modern societies, the governments in South Nigeria introduced programs to make education free or subsidized for some people. Onengia Fineface reports from Port Harcourt that the absence of proper child upbringing and family values blurs all hopes to incorporate out-of-school children into mainstream education policies in the region.
12-year-old Christiana Patrick started hawking sachet water on the streets of Port Harcourt 5 years ago.
I want to be a lawyer when I grow up. I never start school. Why? My parents no get money.
Her dreams of becoming a legal practitioner, like that of many other out-of-school children, may never come true, since they neither have access to normal family life nor proper child upbringing and education.
My father know that I don't have money to put even myself. If I have money, I can put myself in the school.
Operators of the only known street children rehabilitation home in River State, Do Marilac Center, put the number of out-of-school children at over 2,000, most of whom are said to be victims of child labor, broken homes, superstitious belief in children as witches, and uncontrolled crave for independence.
Children of 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, they are taken to prostitution, and then some of them join courts.
Although the number of out-of-school children in Akwa Ibom State could not be ascertained, NTA News crew gathered from educationists that the provision of free and compulsory education is not enough if study materials are not also made available.
Free education in the state should
cover provision of facilities for education.
For Christiana Patrick and the many other out-of-school street children in South Nigeria to realize their dreams, Sister Uche Wakonobi says in addition to free education, they also need the love and care of family life. In Port Harcourt, Onengiye Fineface, NTA News.
And from Kaduna comes a report that despite state government's intervention in the Almajiri education system by incorporating Western education and the subsequent introduction of the federal government's Almajiri education scheme, much still needs to be done to adequately engage majority of school children. Correspondent Ibrahim Bilugunda reports.
The aim of the Almajiri Education Initiative is to redress the problem of out-of-school children at the grassroots, as well as reduce the menace of street begging by school-age children through an educational system that combines formal and Islamic education together. Statistics available from 2004 survey indicates that there are close to 1 million Almajiris in Kaduna State. Almajiri School Initiative in Kaduna State was first introduced by the wife of the former governor of Kaduna State, Asma Umakarfi, through her pet project, Millennium Hope.
Learned how the system operates, and we tried as much as possible to encourage them that there is need for them to integrate into the society.
Ayatu Muhammad is an Almajiri student from Asma Umakarfi's initiative.
As I'm talking to you now, I'm a graduate of State University. I read history.
Malam Musa Liman Zakaria is the first proprietor of Sangaya School to key into the program, and he is still playing active role in the initiative by the federal government that took over from Asma Umakarfi in Kaduna State. One of the federal government's Almajiri boarding school initiative in Kaduna is the Umar Musa Adwa Bilingual Boarding Primary School in Zaria, established in 2010 with 186 pupils drawn from across the state, everything from feeding, clothing, accommodation, and needed materials for teaching and learning are free in the school and its likes. They call for proper understanding of the concept by parents, traditional institutions, community, and stakeholders, as well as proper funding and planning. In Kaduna, Ibrahim Bello Gunda, NTA News.
You are watching Weekend File on the network service of the NTA. Next will be live conversation with our studio guest. Stay with us.
Your favorite pictures of Lucky, your beloved Bingo, on the internet. And maybe Lucky could be all the rage. Think 10 megabytes. Wow. Let us upload a video of Lucky. Now, Lucky is a YouTube sensation. Okay, 500 megabytes. Ooh. Lucky selfies, Lucky album downloads, Lucky Instagram photo bombs with flavor, Omaomi. And look, it's the band. 1 gig. Watch Lucky take the red carpet live at his new movie premiere and watch the making of his latest music video featuring Omaomi. You have brought Lucky this far on 1 gig. Just take a couple of seconds to think how far you're gonna get on Glow Internet.
Stay ahead. Upgrade to Glow Mobile Broadband high-speed internet for everyone. Enjoy the new all-purpose data pack. Use it the way you want. 1-day pack for 50 naira and 7-day pack for 200 naira. And 7-day pack for 200 naira.
Happy Hour, burst of refreshment. Available in peach, tropical fruit, apple peach pear, kiwi mint lime, and guava. Chi Happy Hour, burst of refreshment.
House of Chi.
Change is the only constant. Anything defined can be refined. Welcome to the new look of FCMB, the new look of opportunity. FCMB, My bank and I. My bank and
Here is Professor Jerry Agada, an education stakeholder and a one-time Minister of State for Education. Professor Agada, you're welcome to Weekend File.
Thank you very much.
It's indeed nice to have you. Now, staggering number of Nigerian children who are out of school, and this is despite the efforts being made by various state governments and of course the federal government to bridge the gap. Where did we get it wrong in the first place?
Well, you know, when we talk of access, the feeling that most people have is that there has to be institutions where these people that are out of school could be put. But the point is that, you know, you can build as many institutions as possible, but certain things have to be, you know, got right to be able to achieve, you know, your target. Because you discover that even in the much talked about Almajiri schools and code that have been built in some places, you still discover that to get students or children to go into these institutions to study even becomes a problem, meaning that something must be wrong somewhere. In other words, yes, we have the intention, we have the target, but certain things have to be done to be got correctly before we achieve that target.
Now, that's exactly where we have to go now.
Yeah.
What are those things that that need to be done? Is it because some parents don't want their children to go to school, or is it because those children do not really, you know, want to pass through education?
You know, that is, you know, the dislocation in the society which we have. Take, for instance, when you go to some towns, some cities, you know, the number of children you see, you know, going about on the streets, then you begin to wonder, what has happened? Where are the parents of these children that you see on the streets? And then if you go further to ask, you discover that some of them will say, well, they have no money. By the way, what do they understand about money if that social dislocation has not been there? Some of them have read from papers. In fact, there's a program or a publication in the Nation newspaper of today, which essentially centered on out-of-school children. And most of them, what were they saying? Some have traveled from some far places to another town, maybe from around Maiduguri or Abeokuta to go to Lagos, to be on the streets, you know, meaning that's what I mean by social dislocation, in such a way that when that parental love, something to keep the children in the system is not there. Yeah. Even if you build these things, yes, how will they come there? Who will bring them there? And then you keep seeing them on the streets.
Okay, Prof, now this issue of vocational education, you know, that of course have been played down for a while now in this country, where people who may not actually have the capacity to read books could go and learn one trade or the other, maybe carpentry and all that. Now, what has happened? You've been in the education sector, you know, very seriously, and as you go as the Minister of State. Now, why are we not really, you know, promoting vocational education in this country? Everybody wants certificate, and when people are certificated, they don't even get a job because they're not employable.
You know, every time we talk about education, we keep repeating the same thing. If you take your mind back to as far back as, say, 1984, you know, the then national policy on education, you know, when the 6334 started initially, the idea was after the first 6 years in the primary school, the first 3 years in the junior secondary, then the other in the senior secondary. The aim was that by the time you finish your junior secondary, depending on where your talent is targeted, if you are academically oriented, you can continue to go through academic pursuits. But on the other hand, if it is, you know, vocational that you are tilted to, the idea was where these things should be taught so that from the junior secondary, you now enter that one and you continue to go with it. But you discover what happened. Even the introductory technology materials that were put to take care of those who will branch out to go to where they can use their hands. They remained in crates. They were not even opened in some places. And even in other places, there were no electricity or power to power these things. So you discover that even though government had good intention by providing those things, they were without. The implementation was not there. So at the end of the day, because even if somebody branches at the end of the junior secondary to say I'm going for introductory technology, to go I'm going for a vocational training in this way, when these facilities are not there, what do you do? Everybody continues with the academic pursuit, and then at the end of the day, everybody is looking for certificate.
All right, Prof, there's this disparity issue that exists. For instance, up north, we find out that most girls are not enrolling in schools as they should be, and down the southeast of this country and other parts of the southern Nigeria, if you like, the boys, want to go into trading and to make money and all of that. That becomes more important to them. Now, how can this particular issue be tackled, especially the girl child, who, to me, should be more important, because when you say train a woman, you train a nation. So how can we handle that aspect, especially up north?
No, the point is that to be aware of a problem gives you the stand to be able to solve that problem. If you know that this is what is happening from up north, there is nothing wrong with continuing with advocacy, to talk to our people, to let them know that the girl child education is very important. I mean, there is nothing cultural to prevent a girl from attaining education to the highest level that the person would be able to go. The same thing with down in the south, where the situation is for the boys who tend to branch out to say they are going for trading this and that because they are looking for money. I think there is the need to let the society understand certain basic values in our system. That money is not everything. A small child of about how many years? You say instead of going to school, you want to go and make money. Where are you going with that money? Then the girl child up north too. I mean, you have to have education, because north is not in isolation. We are seeing, the world is a global village now. So if you see what other women do, it's as a result of education. Do you want to continue to wallow in poverty, in ignorance, because you want to propagate a cultural orientation from a particular area? It's not the best.
Now, Professor Agada, the world is now setting agenda for education beyond 2015. What should be Nigeria's focus, especially at the basic level, which is the foundation level of education generally?
You see, I always say that a house built on wrong foundation cannot stand properly. Anything you want to do about education must have that primacy, at the foundation. If not, it will not go well. Therefore, what do? Let us focus attention on provision of facilities, provision of whatever at the basic level, so that once we start getting it right from that level, we can now talk of building on top of that one, and things will stand. But as long as that system is not properly put, and we continue talking about policies today, policy will be enunciated on Monday, it will be discarded with another one will come in on Monday to be thrown away. Things will not all go well. No matter the type of government that is in place, education is education. And the facilities, the steps to take to make things proper are constant. You get my point? Therefore, let us start from the basic level. If, it's not a question of providing 10,000 primary schools to basic schools that is the problem.
Now you're talking about the basic level. You have a function at the highest level of education in this country, as in terms of a policy implementation, education-wise. And I want you to tell us exactly what should be done. Those basic things we're talking about practically. What can, I mean, if you are the incoming, if you have the incoming Minister of Education, what should he or she be thinking of doing?
The person should look at, as I said, education from its foundation. The person should look at provision of facilities in most of these schools. The person should look at a situation where some systems, say private institutions, for instance, will take the shine off the provision of education generally. It's not the best, because it's not everybody that has the money to be able to send his or her child to these high-cost private schools. So why don't you bring out a policy that will all go well for the entire system at that level, so that everybody will be exposed to the type of education
Can
that
school fees be standardized in terms of making sure that no school, charges, indiscriminate charging? Some even say that some schools say pay them in dollars and all of that. So can that also help the younger ones to enter the schools? Basic education.
So those are part of the things that I said have to be looked at, because as long as that disparity is there, because somebody has money, he comes to establish a very high cost, cost-effective school where you say they pay in dollars. In fact, I will not even subscribe to a situation where I see somebody saying you must pay in dollars. It's not correct. As for saying that fees can be standardized, I do not see the possibility for some time, because somebody will commit his or her resources and whatever to bring a standard place. Then you say fees should be standardized so that they pay the same fee with somebody who has not put any facility at all in that person's school. It becomes a problem. So I don't know how government will do it, but like I said, it is when you have a problem, when you identify a problem, then you start designing solutions. So that problem is there, and a solution has to be designed. And of course, we do comparative education and things like that. Let us look at systems as they operate in other parts of the world, so as to replicate what it can do.
All right. On that note, Professor Agada, I'd like to thank you for your perspectives and for your contribution to WeekendFile tonight. Thank you for being here tonight. Professor Jerry Agada was one-time Minister of State for Education. Thank you once again for coming. Now, we'll now pause for more messages. WeekendFile continues with Henry Ifeum.
Some stakeholders in the country's sports sector have advocated for good funding for sports in the country in order to take Nigeria to the desired heights in international competitions. Proper education for children and adults, well-articulated structures, and the politicizing sports administration, they say, are some of the areas that should be revisited.
Is there any existing structure? Government should not just be involved in promotion of sports. Rather, they should be involved in development, right from the pre-primary school up to the highest level.
What I would say first is to put technocrats. Those ones will know what it is, what they need to do to make sports to grow. But as long as you continue to politicize that level, it's going to be difficult.
Sports must be taken to a different dimension. I am believing that if there are changes in other sectors, it will permeate the sports sector. And if it permeates the sports sector, then good funding, good leadership, and the sky will be our limit.
The boxing world is set to come alive early hours on Sunday when America's Floyd Mayweather will be taking on Manny Pacquiao of the Philippines in the WBC, WBA, and WBO welterweight title fight at the MGM Grand Arena in Las Vegas. The fight, which is one of the most lucrative in the history of boxing, will see 38-year-old Mayweather pocket a heavy paycheck of about $150 million, while 36-year-old Pacquiao is estimated to go home with about $100 million. Mayweather is currently the highest paid athlete of all time, while Pacquiao, in addition to boxing, is also a congressman back in the Philippines. And in the Barclays Premier League, Manchester United have continued to walk a tightrope in their quest for a top four finish. The Red Devils recorded their third straight loss in a row with a 1-0 defeat at home to West Brom. In some of the other games of the day, Leicester City beat Newcastle 3-0, Villa 3, Everton 2, Liverpool 2, QPR 1, while West Ham may have condemned Burnley to relegation with a 1-0 victory. With sports updates, Henry Ifeum, NTA News.
And that's our package tonight. Hoping you had a great time watching the program. From me and the rest of the team is good night.